The third matchup in our round of 16 knockout to see who was the best All Ireland winner of the last 16 years. This time we're going to go Clare 2013 against Kilkenny 2015. Neither side has won an All Ireland since. So is this the last kick of those two teams? First of all, Michael Verney.
Well, one of your favourites, Shane, the 2013 Clare team, team you're very close with.
Well, at the same time, obviously, someone from Tipperary is going to want to see all of its neighbours not win. But like, it's not like I'd be looking to push another Kilkenny team through here because I fear that the Kilkenny masses are going to get in behind all the Kilkenny teams here, and it'll be like the time the British government was looking for the public to name one of its new vessels, new boats, and they voted it to be called Boaty McBoatface. So I think that's what the Kilkenny fans are going to do during this knockout competition.
I just wonder which of these is the lesser of two evils for you. It's an awkward one.
I don't know, is it? Because when I was looking over it, I was thinking that Galway just absolutely collapsed in that second half of the All Ireland final in 2015. It really was sort of this was the kind of real low point of that Galway team and its search for the All Ireland. I think it was the last game for Anthony Cunningham. It was a dour game in the sense that Kilkenny just dropped everyone back in the second half. This was the ultimate sort of hat tip to Gaelic football at its most dour. Sat everyone back. Galway fell into the trap. Just kept hitting long ball into the traffic. And I think Kilkenny something like 7 points ahead, having been like three behind heading into half time. Whereas contrast that with the Cork Clare games in those two All Ireland finals. That was actually up there with the high point of hurling all time in terms of entertainment. So that's why I'd actually be, if we're going to lean one way or the other, I'm actually starting to lean towards Clare here.
Yeah, if you're talking about like which is the greater spectacle or which game you're going to remember, nobody really remembers anything about the 2015 All Ireland final. Realistically, I was at both games in 13, and they were absolutely enthralling, particularly the second game. The just back to the 15 final, it was that mad scenario where it looked like Galway were in a great position, and then by all accounts, Jackie Tyrrell went in and gave a speech. He wasn't playing that year. Had that kind of screw in his foot or whatever it was at the time. Came in and gave a speech. Michael Verney came out absolutely like went straight through Canning within about 5 minutes of the start of the second half, and it just set the tone completely. TJ Reid, who hadn't been on the ball in the first half, absolutely lorded in the second half. I remember seeing like a heat map of where he did his damage. In the first half, it was kind of confined to one area. He was moving around one area. In the second half, he was everywhere, and he got on loads and loads of ball and kind of dictated the game in the second half. And he had that mad scenario where Galway looked in control at half time, and within 15, 20 minutes of the second half, the game was over. And you had that weird kind of eerie atmosphere after in Croke Park. I think very few people stayed around. It's funny when success becomes so common for a county. You almost take it for granted. Like, what would Kilkenny people do now if they won the All Ireland? They go absolutely crazy. It's 5 years this year, obviously, since their last All Ireland. But I think, like, you were even in the post match press conference with Brian Cody, and it was like they were after winning the Walsh Cup. Almost.
Yeah, it was something like 2.5, 3 minutes maybe, because the game just took on a pattern that everyone understood here. Galway completely flopped, panicked. I don't know, shrunk under the lights. So we very quickly ran out of things to ask Brian Cody because his team just stepped up and the opposition didn't. He gave his analysis and everyone was just like, I don't know, it was a bit like almost interviewing Jim Gavin after some of those All Irelands. There was kind of, we all know that he's gonna give us the very minimum, and we're not going to be able to prize anything else out of him. Yeah, like I remember Galway in that game. They ended up with different people at midfield that probably I wouldn't have had at midfield. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was Greg Lally ended up midfield when he came on. I think Cathal Mannion ended up out midfield. Their team was kind of all over the place, and not to name names, but one of the players basically had a go at the manager on social media a couple of days later. Now it was subsequently taken down, and I think this ended up being the end of the Anthony Cunningham era. But it was complete collapse from Galway. Now you have to credit Kilkenny because they absolutely put the squeeze on them, like the boa constrictor sort of a thing in that second half. But in terms of a spectacle, it definitely didn't do it for me. Will I bring up the teams there?
Yeah, just in a second. I just think it's funny. Like, this was probably one of the last kind of, in inverted commas, easy All Irelands ever won. like Kilkenny won 4 games to win an All-Ireland. Like,
wait now. Tipper after winning All Irelands by 9 points and 14 points since, so I'm not sure that's strictly true.
That's their finals now, easy finals. I thought like I will always say, and I always come back to my own county, the easiest All Ireland final All Ireland ever won was 1981 when Offaly made the breakthrough. They played Laois and Wexford in Leinster, got a bye to the All Ireland final and beat Galway. So they played 3 games to win an All Ireland. But this is one of the last times like Kilkenny hammered Wexford. In fairness, that was that demolition in Nolan Park where I heard after that Wexford were considering playing a sweeper system and had been practicing it a small bit in training, and that then there was a vote taken at maybe a training session before the match, a couple of days before the match, where the Wexford players were asked to close their eyes, and if they wanted to go with the sweeper, they put their hand up, and if they didn't put their hands up. It was basically like a blind vote. It was mad stuff. Kilkenny absolutely obliterated them. Beat Galway in the Leinster final. I think Richie Hogan came on and got 4 points. I think he had a broken thumb. Beat Waterford in the semi-final and then beat Galway, where I have in my notes here that Galway SH something T the Togs that day.
It was pretty much like that. I'm just going to jump onto the teams here and just kind of run through those quickly. So looking at that Kilkenny team from the final, Owen Murphy, obviously brilliant goalie. Paul Murphy, very good. Joey Holden, much maligned at the time, and obviously people have very much switched their opinion on him since. I think Shane Prendergast was quite a good player, made his breakthrough quite late on. Very good half backline, Pádraig Walsh, Kieran Joyce, Gillian Buckley, Michael Fennelly and Conor Fogarty, then Colin Fennelly, Richie Hogan, TJ Reid, Jerry Aylward, Walter Walsh and Owen Larkin. I actually wanted to make a point about Owen Larkin. He was unbelievable, I think, that year. The Leinster final, I think he kind of ran the show against Galway. Now, obviously, they played the All-Ireland final the following year. Didn't happen for them. But that was something else from Larkin that year. I don't think he won an All-Star, but definitely deserved one. I might have to double-check that one. But all in all, a fairly strong team. But the depth wasn't there. I mean, John Power and Richie Power were brought on late in the game when it was probably won. But it was that probably era there, that year or two, where they probably didn't go much beyond the 15. Like Richie Power came on the 2014 semi-final against Limerick and turned it. But other than that, they were down to the bare bones at that stage.
Yeah, they kind of were, to be fair. Just looking down through the unused subs, Richie Reid, who will probably still be there when he comes back from his tour of duty. Jackie was injured. Rob Lennon, who's not on the panel now. Michael Walsh did his cruciate not long after, not on the panel. Dermot Cody, there's one for you now, like Brian Cody's son, who isn't actually playing with the Village at the moment and hasn't played in the last couple of years, I think due to injury. Lester Ryan, All-Ireland winning captain the year previous, dropped himself off the Kilkenny panel. Joe Ling, who's no longer involved, John Joe Farrell was dropped, and Matt Root is retired. Like, there's the 26 players that played. It's nuts actually to go through it. John Power was dropped, who came on. Richie Power retired. And there's like the subs that were used and the unused subs, and there's basically, I think Richie Reid is the only one left. Richie Reid is the only one left, which is staggering, really.
Let's just jump onto the Clare team there, just to have a look at that. So they played twice. We'll just pick the second day when Shane O'Donnell was playing. Patrick Kelly in goals, Donal O'Donovan, David McInerney, Cian Dillon, Brendan Bugler, Patrick Donlan, Patrick O'Connor, Colin Galvin and Conor Ryan, who actually played centre-back with Donlan out midfield. John Conlon, Tony Kelly, Colin Ryan, Podge Collins, Shane O'Donnell and Conor McGrath. So off the bench then came Colin McInerney, Nicky O'Connell, goal scorer Derek Honan and Shane Amori. What are your thoughts on that team, and especially in light of what we've just seen from Kilkenny?
Pat Donlan was sweeper, wasn't he?
Would you call him sweeper the second day? Like, I thought they more or less went mano a mano the second day. Sure, like Pat Donlan solo and through for that goal early on for Shane O'Donnell.
He played sweeper a good bit. He definitely played sweeper one.
Oh, he was 100% a sweeper against Galway in that quarter final in Thurles. Oh, I remember Galway hit every ball down on top of him. It was mindless stuff altogether that day.
It's funny when you go down through it. It's just going through their all-stars from that year. David McInerney, Brendan Bugler, Pat Donlan, Colin Galvin, Tony Kelly, Podge Collins, Conor McGrath, and not one of them have gotten an all-star since. And realistically, in those years that have followed. In horse racing terms, they haven't trained on at all as a team. Like the only year any of them would have even come close to getting an All-Star was in 18 when they got to the replay. The replay All-Ireland semi-final. Like, they haven't produced anything since. Kilkenny, you could say Kilkenny obviously haven't won All-Ireland since, but the majority of that team was back and got to an All-Ireland final the year after. Whereas Clare's first time to get back to Croke Park after the 2013 replayed final was 5 years later, which is just like unbelievable, really. So, like, I think if you're taking the two teams on, that on what they produced since, I think it's a no-brainer that Kilkenny will go through in my view, just because if you're looking at the players that have produced for them since 15, your TJ Reeds, your Joey Holdens, your Killian Buckleys, your Owen Murphys, like, they're some of the best players we will talk about during this era. Whereas the Clare 2013 team, yeah, there's some brilliant hurlers there, hurlers have got a lot of time for, but they haven't delivered to that same level of inter-county level as the Kilkenny lads in the meantime.
Yeah, but first of all, just one little quick point is, if we look at the teams again, look at that Clare team, there's probably not even too many of those lads still left around. Like Donal O'Donovan, Keane Dillon, Brendan Bugler, just to keep going. Conor Ryan obviously had his illness, so he couldn't stay playing. There's just been quite a turnover on that team. Colin Ryan also, he's retired from it, and possibly a little bit early that he retired. Obviously had other things going on. But the Kilkenny team that year, did they get to the same level that Clare got in 2013? And like, nobody has banged the drum more than I have that Clare never backed it up, and I will never kind of stand down on that particular point, because they did nothing 5 years before and 5 years after. But what I would say is the level of hurling they got to that year was absolutely superb, and I don't think what Kilkenny did in that year compares with it, because it was dour enough stuff, really, that All-Ireland. That Galway Tip semi-final was a real high point in terms of excitement, but that final was absolutely horrific. It just was not exciting to watch. And if you put that Kilkenny team, which was arguably the worst Kilkenny team of this particular knockout competition thing that we're doing here, I think it's probably the worst Kilkenny offering that we have among this. Whereas that Clare team won a thrilling All-Ireland. And okay, they lost the first round to Cork and beaten by maybe 5 points that day. But the way they came back, like, at first kind of struggled, they battered Laois. Then they drew with Wexford, and at that stage, a poor enough Wexford beat them in extra time in Thurles. Then they went on and beat Galway, and all of a sudden you were like, maybe this Clare team has something about them. Semi-final against Limerick, really, really good that day, although Limerick missed 1-5 of 1-6 in the opening 10 or 11 minutes. But the level they got to and played once they hit Croke Park that year, I don't think that Kilkenny team would have been able to live with them.
And do you know what turned their season in 2013? A good bit of my waddy and biscuits in Davy's house.
Most overplayed story going. Like, I've heard some lads say that was just, some people went there and they were shaking their head at this, that things weren't going to turn after this meeting. But sometimes you just play a game, things start to click, and on you go again. You can't possibly tell me that Kilkenny team in 2015 could have gotten to the heights that Clare team got in 2013.
Well, but what do you mean? What heights exactly are you talking about? The heights of winning an All-Ireland? Yes, they did. What exactly heights are you talking about? Or was 2013 just an absolute aberration with an asterisk beside it because things looked unbelievable at the time and nothing came of it? It's like a 2-year-old in racing producing this unbelievable performance in a maiden, winning by 10 lengths, and never produced that again because he just came up against maybe a bad field that day and was never in the situation where he could look that good again.
Yeah, but Kilkenny's was just they sat back and choked out Galway, whereas Clare went forward and it was thrilling to watch. Think of the performances of Conor McGrath, think of the performances of Conor Ryan, unbelievable at times. Tony Kelly, of course, look at the way he won Hurler of the Year. Podge Collins. I don't think the Kilkenny players, who obviously got to much higher heights in other years, got to that same level that year. So as much and all as I take chops at Clare, I just don't think that Kilkenny team is in the same league.
For entertainment wise, 2013 Clare was one of the most entertaining years. I will say that, based on what they've produced since. I'd go with the Kilkenny 2015 team, but I totally I totally understand your argument. That was thoroughly entertaining stuff from 2013. Like 2013, Clare, Cork, those finals, that looked like they were after change. They were after changing hurling. You cannot say the same about 2015. It was same old Kilkenny choking the life out of another team. So if you're coming from it from that aspect, yes, I would come at it from the aspect of what have the teams produced since. And I would say that Kilkenny have produced a lot more consistently in the meantime than Clare have.
Okay, well, we'll put it out to the public either, because we're not going to agree between the two of us today. We'll have it out on Twitter, so you can vote on the poll there. It'll also be in the comments after this video on YouTube. So if you want to vote for Clare, obviously click on the comment that says Clare, and likewise for Kilkenny. Any final thoughts, or will we leave it there?
The only thing I would say, like anyone voting for Clare, just remember that we're the small fish and we never get any decisions.
Yeah, hard to beat that comment. Right, cheers for that.